Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I'm your host, Joe Kuzma, and for those of you hanging around Twitter, you'll see I've been talking to my BFF, Eric Herrmann, associate editor of Steel City Underground, quite often, including a picture that I equated to me and him being like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly of Step Brothers. Eric, which one are you, buddy? Are you Nighthawk or... Oh, I can't even remember. I don't want to misquote the movie now because now I'm going to sound like an idiot.
Well, I do have a nice samurai sword signed by Randy Jackson, so...
Because, you know, when you see Randy Jackson, you're not going to have him not sign a samurai sword, right?
not going to have him sign or get his autograph.
You know, you've just derailed the whole point of this podcast, the whole topic of discussion for today's episode, where we're going to talk about our way too early Steelers predictions on the defensive side of the ball, the ones that we made back in June 7th of 2016. But you know what? I can't let go of the signing autographs thing. This is totally, I'm going to put you on the spot. We were going to be on the spot anyways. There was no real agenda. We're kind of following what we had in this article, but I actually didn't read it because I want to be about as surprised as possible, although I was just leafing through the first part of this. But I heard, for those of you who listen to the Fan Morning Show in Pittsburgh, Ron Cook and Andrew Filipponi, that run that quite often. And I think Ron Cook was going off on some fans. This was just following the Super Bowl. Not a lot of sports to talk about. I think it was like NHL All-Star break and everything else. So he was talking about how he's totally anti-autographs from sports players, or he's against jerseys. He doesn't understand jerseys. He doesn't understand autographs. And he was talking about, I think Jordan Spieth was going off on some type of, I don't know if he had like a stalker. He has like the same people who always show up at his events and want like, I don't know what, a golf ball or whatever. If you don't know Jordan Spieth, he's a famous golfer, won the Masters, young guy, blah, blah, blah. He's really good from what I understand. I'm not a big golfer or follower of golf, but I know of him. So I guess he's signing these, whatever they are, photographs, and these people put it like on eBay and stuff, which I find that distasteful. But I've never been a big autograph seeker, and I'm going to have to ask Brian this when I get him on once again, because I think this will be an interesting topic for somebody who has a ginormous collection that he had so much he had to sell excess doubles and triples that he has. He was selling them on eBay. He gives them away in contests. We'll have one coming up here on Steel City Underground. But Eric, I kind of wondered, well, let's take autographs first. Let's just talk about this for a second. I'm not a big chaser of autographs. How about you?
I mean, I think for kind of my generation, since I'm only like, 10, 12 years younger than you, but for my people, kind of selfies are the new autograph. Like people would, when they see a celebrity, they just want to take a picture with them. They don't really want their autograph. And it actually made me think, too. I remember D'Angelo Williams, he kind of went a mini Twitter rant. Maybe it was last summer. He kind of started talking about, like, I don't get why people's first instinct when they see a celebrity is to take a picture with them. They don't want to talk to them. They don't want to ask them questions. They just want to take a picture with them and show it on social media. And I thought that was a really interesting point because, I mean, you see these cool celebrities and you'd rather just show other people you met them than actually kind of pick their brain or just have a brief discussion with them. So that's what made me think of. And yeah, I've never really got the appeal of autographs. I mean, I always wondered why people didn't just like forge autographs and sell it, because that seems like a pretty easy scam.
Yeah, you're supposed to have like a certificate of authenticity or something to verify. Now, I actually won like I have an Antonio Brown jersey, not a game-worn jersey. It's just a regular Nike replica that he supposedly signed. It was like through a Pepsi deal. And there's no type of certificate or any type of document that verifies that it's legit. But I know unless somebody just totally like decided, hey, I'm going to send Joe $100 and some Nike replica jersey and with a fake signature on it, and haha, I got one over on him, then you know what I mean? It came from Pepsi. So what else am I going to say about that? I guess it's real. I have it. That's kind of cool. Now, I got from Brian, this is just an oddball one. Speaking of BFFs, and D'Angelo Williams, I have a Chris Boswell jersey because I wanted a kicker jersey so bad. So I actually bought one of his eBay auctions and got a signed Boswell jersey. I'm going to frame him. It's kind of a novelty. I think I'm going to go around and get all of the former kickers. Like I said, my wife, speaking of like when you're talking about favorite non-Steelers or stuff like that, her being a Browns fan, her favorite non-Browns player was actually Sean Sweesham for a while there. Yeah, I think I'm going to pick up a Sweesham jersey, and then going even back to that, you're talking about the selfies. My cousin got to take a picture with Jeff Reed at the Hall of Fame back in Canton about almost 2 years ago during the Bettis thing. Jeff Reed was there partying it up. In fact, the story was he got thrown out of the Hall of Fame game the next day. But during the induction ceremony, he's there partying, and he's got his Super Bowl rings. He's got a picture of Jeff Reed. So I'm like, I'm going to have to go back and get a Jeff Reed jersey too, because the guy's that's just so cool. So the kickers need some love. But I'm not a big autograph seeker. And
actually, speaking of that, Joe, that made me think too. I actually have a friend. He's kind of a bouncer up in Indiana, PA, and a couple of weeks ago, he ran into Chris Boswell trying to get to the place he works at because he kind of looks like a baby. So he carded him and saw he was Chris Boswell. So he and his boss got some pictures with him.
Oh, that would have been great for social media. They could have said that they could have asked D'Angelo if he may have gotten carded since they were doing all the birthday stuff. I mean, you know what? You're pretty much I'm the D'Angelo Williams to you being the Chris Boswell, because you're always telling me how old I am. You're making fun of me and Matt Spaeth and trying to say we don't have Twitter or whatnot. But yeah, you know what? The pictures thing, I guess it matters if you're in that if you're just a fan. I mean, you're going to be like, hey, I'm gonna get a picture. You won't believe who I saw, and I've done that once. And I used to be involved with professional wrestling. I've made mention of it a few times here on the show, and I kind of regret. It's almost like frowned upon. Like, you don't want to be too big of a super fan when these guys are like your peers and you're working alongside them. But at the same time, I wish I had just a few more pictures. There's some guys that are no longer with us in that profession, and it was just really cool to have met the people that I have met over the years. Now, there was one I just could not go without, and that was I was down in Atlanta for WrestleMania about 6 years ago now. I think it was 2011, and I'm working out in Gold's Gym the day after WrestleMania, and I just wanted to work out at Gold's Gym because, number one, the hotel gyms suck. If you've ever been in any of those, no good. I mean, you're lucky if the treadmill works right, let alone having any type of free weights or anything. And just trying to stay in shape and whatnot. And it was kind of a vacation, but you still need to maintain a little bit. So I'm there in Gold's Gym, and the place is dead as a doornail. It's around lunchtime on a Monday afternoon. WrestleMania had already steamrolled through the day before, and guess who comes walking right by me is no other than Vince McMahon. And I look around the room, and I'm just like, I'm actually done with my set, but I did like maybe 2 or 3 more reps because I was trying to figure out what to do. And he was nice enough to take a picture with me. I mean, I had just the biggest cojones to go up to this guy. I mean, he's like a billionaire. He is the guy responsible for all things. This would be like Roger Goodell or one of the Rooneys or somebody like that walking in. Or there's very few people. I mean, I saw so many celebrities and whatnot throughout that weekend. And I'm pretty much the kind of guy that's like, I see somebody eating at Waffle House, or I saw one of them at Hard Rock, and I'm like, I don't want to bother them. If there's other fans here, they're going to swarm to them. And the other thing is like, what do you say to them? Now, if you're in that profession, you're going to ask them advice. Now, if somebody's going to D'Angelo Williams, they're probably not a football player. They're probably somebody that's an old man like me. And they're just, what am I going to say? Hey, what do you do? What's your advice on this or something? You really don't. What do you ask somebody like that, especially if you're a couch potato? There's not a whole lot of advice to pick their brain. Now, if you're in the same profession, you might want to pick their brain or whatever, but I was so scared of Vince McMahon and so nervous about it, and I didn't want to bother him. I figure he's busy. It was just a picture and gone, and I didn't even share the picture for many, 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 many years. So that's just a really crazy story. But the other thing that Ron Cook was talking about, aside from that, and no autographs. I didn't get a single autograph the entire weekend. I was down there for 5 days of various wrestling events, not a single autograph. So Ron Cook was talking about wearing jerseys. He says, I never understood why anybody would wear somebody else's name on their back. And I'm like, well, that seems a little extreme to me because
yeah, it kind of is.
I have like 20 jerseys in the closet, 20 different Steelers jerseys. Some guys no longer playing, like Hines Ward or Troy. I think I have like 3 different Troy Polamalu jerseys in that. So to me, it's just being a part of the team and supporting guys. It's not so much like, I don't know, I don't worship or bow at anybody's feet like that. It's just, I don't get Ron going a little far with that. And he's talking about, professionalism, being a reporter, being around these guys. No, it's against taking pictures, getting autographs, and blah, blah, blah from them. And that much I could understand. But seriously, I think if he asked like a specific favor or wanted to get something for his kid, I'm sure like Ben Roethlisberger would sign something for him and think nothing of it and be very appreciative to even give him or his, if he has kids or whatever, that sort of gift.
Yeah, I'm not a big jersey guy. I know you and Brian are like fanatics about that. But I mean, what else has to do with I'm a little stingy with money, and being a college student, I don't have an abundance of it. But since like I only wear it on game days, so I can't really justify owning multiple because that's like $100 investment for something I'd wear like a few times a year. So I have my one Antonio Brown jersey, and I do want to get another jersey, maybe like a Cam Hayward or Ryan Shazier. Like I also try and like I go with the contracts. Like I go for like Cam Hayward got like a 5-6 year contract, so I'm gonna get Cam Hayward because he's gonna stick around for a while. But actually, my best jersey story, though, is just a quick story. Don't worry. With Megan, my fiance, when she bought me my Antonio Brown jersey probably 3 years ago. And it was right around when Antonio Brown signed his contract. And she told me she was on the fence between a Wallace and a Brown jersey. And she chose well. She almost got me that Wallace jersey, but she got me Brown instead.
It's very funny you mentioned that because I had the same thing. When they came out with the Bumblebee jerseys, that was back in 2012, the 80th anniversary for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I knew they had given Antonio Brown this big contract. It's before he blew up on the scene. That was that final year that Mike Wallace was here in Pittsburgh. And I know my cousin got a Mike Wallace jersey, and I'm just like, why would you get that, man? I mean, he's going to be gone. He's not going to sign a contract. He was like, nah, I think he'll stay. I'm like, no, there's no way. He just sat out of training camp. And this is before I got to be so opinionated with a podcast and a website and everything else. So I was just trolling people on social media and whatnot. She had such a difficult time finding an Antonio Brown jersey, but I got one. And now you can't go anywhere without seeing one. And I'm sure you're in the same type of situation. So it's actually kind of cool a little bit on the what do you want to say, the crystal ball there, the forefront of being an Antonio Brown supporter before he became a superstar. So, yeah, AB, if you're listening, man, supported you from day one, man. I saw the greatness coming. But, yeah, Ben Roethlisberger, solid guys. I mean, I remember there was a NFL show. I tried calling in on it, and I couldn't believe you couldn't even get in on NFL radio, and it was about the guys that this was several years ago, and you're going to laugh about this. They were asking the solid guy you could buy a jersey of and not have to worry. You'll be there for like 10 years because they were saying a lot of fans, like let's say Dolphins fans, because there's a lot of turnover. They've been in the dumpster for 15, 20 years or whatever. Finally make the playoffs now, but like who do you buy? You're going to buy a Dan Marino jersey because you can't trust that you'll be able to wear any other jersey for even more than a year or two. I was going to call in and say, you know what? The Browns just drafted Trent Richardson. I'm going to get my wife a Trent Richardson jersey. And wouldn't you know, days later, they trade him to the Colts. And he just crashed, burned, and out of the league. Good thing I didn't make that investment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as far as the jersey thing, man, I've got plenty of guys. And like you said, game day, I feel so weird. Like, I can't wear a football jersey now that it's off season. Like, I finally got the Pittsburgh stuff out of my car. I had like car seat covers and stuff. Like, I have to rotate that stuff out. I'm a Steelers fan 24/7, 365, but there's just something weird. I don't know, almost feels tacky. Like wearing a game jersey, I'm going to go to like the grocery store on a Wednesday night or something in the middle of June. It just doesn't feel right to me. So mostly for game days, maybe football weekends, football Friday if you guys have that type of thing at work. But I've accumulated so many of these because people know I'm just this hardcore fan and they just keep buying them for me, blah, blah, blah. So this kind of ties in because there's some guys here we were wondering, should you buy their jersey or not? And back in June, we were trying to figure that out with the early predictions for the defense. And we were talking about the biggest addition for 2016, and I thought that maybe Artie Burns would get on the field first was my initial impression. At least I'm reading my old words here. But I thought Javon Hargrave would have the biggest impact. You know what? All the rookies had an impact. You got the guy that ended up being the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I did Sean Davis, and props on the segue there, Joe. That was seamless, too.
Pat myself on the back.
Yeah, I wrote about Sean Davis, and my actual prediction was pretty well. I'm looking at it now. I said I could see him splitting snaps with Golden pretty early on, and proficient run support coverage. Wrote about that. Yeah, I kind of talked about how probably midway through the season, I think could take over the starting job, which he did. And he actually did play better than I thought he would, because if you think back, Davis did have some pretty key plays, like in the Ravens game, and at the beginning of the season, he broke up a pass to Mike Wallace. That was really key. It was maybe during the Colts game, he had a huge run stop or stopping Andrew Luck on fourth down. Yeah, he just had a great year, and he definitely played a lot better than I expected him to. So he earned that Rookie of the Year nod.
Yeah, he may have even started earlier if it wasn't for Senquez Golson getting hurt, and then Davis actually kind of had to start in that slot corner position for the first few games of the year. But when he became the starting strong safety opposite of Mike Mitchell, the Pittsburgh Steelers did not lose a single game until that AFC Championship game. And we saw what happened, too. He ends up coming out of the game, and the Patriots just pounced on that opportunity right away. I thought actually the most disappointing, and this won't be in here, I think we have an overachiever, underachiever. I don't think I picked Robert Golden for anything, but man, I talk about is just kind of disappointed in his year. Don't know what's up with that, but hey, we're going to segue back to that jersey thing again. My birthday and my child's birthday is actually on the 28th of each month, back heading into the fall or whatever. So Davis wearing 28, that might be a potential future purchase for me. So I'm just going to throw that out there. So, but yeah, all the rookies were a big addition. We talked about the overachiever. We said who will rise above the level expected of them. And, well, I don't know. I don't think any of us hit this. Let's go with your picks first, because I just mentioned mine.
I mean, I thought I did really well with mine. I said Anthony Chickillo. My prediction was actually pretty spot on, because I talked about how at some point I could see somebody getting injured, and Chickillo ends up kind of stepping up and just playing solid. And he did, because as we all know, Bud Dupree got hurt really early on. Chickillo was playing, and he even took over the job from Moats at one point. Like, they still rotated, but it was probably he probably played 2/3 of snaps while Arthur Moats played 1/3. So I'd say my pick was pretty good, because Chickillo ended up getting significant playing time. He played pretty well, and I think he showed enough for him to kind of keep that backup rotation role next season.
Yeah, Chickillo, not a bad season. I'm actually pulling up his numbers because it was a much better pick. He technically started 7 games. That's that rotation thing. If I'm not mistaken, he was rotating with Jarvis Jones. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And 2 forced fumbles on the year. He had 2.5 sacks, and then 19 total tackles, 5 assisted. Not too bad. Played in 15 games. Well, he dressed for 15 games. He didn't really play. He got hurt. He banged up his foot, and when Bud Dupree came back in, it was kind of like the beginning of the end for his season. So, but he was also a solid special teams player. One of those guys that we look forward to seeing again on the field for 2017. Like I said, I had mentioned my guy prematurely was Robert Golden. I said he would be surpassing anyone's expectations. I said Golden, like Davis, may find himself in necessary roles in nickel or dime packages as well. I think he also had to deal with some injuries or something as well. And, I mean, he just basically lost his job. So regardless of what you have is to blame it on, whatever be the reason, just did not live up to expectations, was not an overachiever, was actually an underachiever, for which we were saying which player will fail to live up to fans' expectations. I'm going to have to eat my words here because, well, at least for a portion of the year, I really thought, I didn't necessarily think that Father Time was catching up with James Harrison as much as I thought the Steelers were going to think Father Time was going to catch up with James Harrison. They were going to sit him, use him sparingly, and he had become a situational player. I thought he was going to be splitting time with the other linebackers, and because of that, his numbers and impact wouldn't be the same, but I couldn't be more wrong. I'm actually very happy to say it. I just thought that everybody had these. It's like when people say, bring back Hines Ward, bring back Troy Polamalu, and it's like these guys bring back Brett Kiesel. They're way past their time, you know what I mean? They were great players. I want to remember them as great players. I don't want to remember them as being has-beens. James Harrison's anything but a has-been. That guy got better as the season went on.
Yeah, I got to agree with you with that. You were wrong.
Gee,
I
thanks.
don't think anyone expected James Harrison to play as well as he did. I mean, you think back to that Chiefs game, he got that key holding call called against them. And in the Dolphins game, he got that forced fumble. He's kind of one of those players where maybe not every snap he's bringing that high impact, but kind of like Dwight Freeney was with the Falcons. Like, he just clutch. Like, he's not going to every snap get to the quarterback or just make an amazing play, but in those key moments, he has that veteran experience where you know he's going to come through.
Yeah, the forced fumbles, even getting the holding call, drawing that penalty in the Chiefs game. He had an interception to start the season. I mean, it's just all over the place. It just, when you needed a big play, you could pretty much count on Harrison to get it done. Just an ageless wonder. You actually had Bud Dupree, which is quite interesting because we were basing this on not even knowing that he would be hurt for half the season.
Yeah, I had real bad luck with my picks getting injured. Because he's really similar to my Sammy Coates pick, where I guess I was kind of right, but you got to put an asterisk there because he was hurt for most of the season. And he actually did show a lot of growth. I think one of my favorite stats was during December, he led all AFC linebackers with 4 sacks, which is amazing. So I think if he had a full season to actually train and been able to actually participate in training camp, he would have been a lot better than he was, and he already was really good considering the circumstances. So I'd say, considering the circumstances, he was technically an underachiever, but I wouldn't really say he had a bad season whatsoever. I thought he played well.
Yeah, and, we discussed how they even label these type of picks, and we were talking about whether they should be overachiever, underachiever. It almost feels dirty even saying it. We're just kind of basically, we're talking about fan expectation of players' performance on the field, and not necessarily how whatever turned out. I think we have the bar raised very high for some guys and a lot lower for others. So it was kind of like, who would surprise us in either category? And we did have one, though, that was pretty much spot on, and it was the hot seat. And of course, I took Jarvis Jones, and I don't think that's too big of a surprise. I remember, like me and you, we pretty much agreed on these, but you had to go a little contrarian just for the purpose of picking someone else for this article. But yeah, Jones, didn't have his 5th-year option, of course, picked up by the team, and pretty much for all intents and purposes looks to be on his way out. Though I will say this, and much to the detriment of one of our team members who loves some of the other linebackers on our team, Jarvis Jones was actually getting, when they took James Harrison off the field, Jones was the one that was out there. He was out there for week 17. He went inactive for that. I think that was the Christmas Day game against the Ravens. He didn't even get a helmet. And then he seemed like he got some playing time, not only in that, of course, that final game he rode the whole way. It was just like a very up and down, odd season. He got to play a little bit in the postseason as well. It seemed like he made a few plays when necessary, but if you needed to call, it was like you pulled out the wild card. You pulled out the joker or the ace out of your sleeve, and then the rest of the deck was just not going to do you any good. That's kind of the way Jarvis Jones came off to me. He was in the hot seat and proved to be it proved to be too much pressure, I think, considering that Harrison and Dupree ended up being the full-time starters. You had somebody a little bit different. You went with a corner.
Yeah, I went with Ross Cockrell, and I think it was a pretty fair because it was. I know we were all really anxious to see how Cockrell does with actually a full off-season under his belt and actually being able to participate in the Steelers training camp because, as everybody probably knows, he was brought in really late after being cut by the Bills and kind of just thrown into the fire. And then I do think he improved. I think Cockrell is one of those players. He's like a solid corner. He'll have flashes, but I don't think he has that real ceiling that kind of Artie Burns has, where he could be elite. But I think he proved himself pretty well. I know there's some people out there who aren't fans of Cockrell because he isn't really a playmaker. He isn't the best cornerback in run support, but I think he played pretty well, and I think he earned himself like a modest contract to stay with the Steelers for a while.
Yeah, I want to say I have at least a few clips that were in the various film room studies that we had throughout the year, and I might pull those together just to show that there's several times on third down where he made just this almost improbable pass breakup, swat the ball away type play that you wouldn't expect from him. And those plays when you take it as a microcosm of the game. Okay, it's one down, but to stop the other team from moving the chains, either force the field goal or force them to punt. And then when you look at it from the larger picture, that happened a handful of times. A lot of people really want to stick to, well, was this guy really worth this round of a draft pick or blah, blah, blah. You got a starting corner off of a waiver wire pickup who did contribute. This is supposed to be the ultimate team game. So when you're contributing these small individual contributions throughout the season, it does help the team overall. I don't know that he was necessarily abused for a while there. Pro Football Focus was like in love with him. Of course, we're
I know.
Yeah, we're like finding out though that Pro Football Focus, it's just hard to figure out their grading system sometimes, and if they see the same thing that we see. But aside from the hot seat, so when you cook the kettle, it starts to bubble over, and we had some roster bubble players. How's that for a segue for you? We said who is at most jeopardy of losing their roster spot, and this is just how funny this is to look back at things like this. You completely forget because the name I mentioned at first is I wanted to say Ross Cockrell. We were just talking about Ross Cockrell. The other Ross Ventrone, who ended up getting hurt anyways, and then had an injury settlement, and C'est La Vie from the team. I actually had Shamarko Thomas as the roster bubble guy. He ended up making it just by virtue of just there weren't enough guys in the secondary. There weren't enough safety. There was safeties or safety depth. He proved to be only a special teams player. They even called up and had Jordan Dangerfield, a practice squad player, start over him when they had no one else because Golden was hurt and whatnot. So this is just, I think I hit the nail on the head. I mean, he didn't necessarily get cut from the team, but you know what? He wasn't exactly a major contributor either. He was kind of just occupying a space at times.
Yeah, the weird thing about Shamarko Thomas is I can't recall him doing anything this season, and most players, I mean, I can't even think of someone like Chris Hubbard. He at least had a moment or two where he impressed, or at least didn't impress. I can't think of a bad play or a good play from Shamarko Thomas. So I forgot he was even on this roster, to be honest.
Yeah, he got hurt, and that was pretty much doomsday for him. And like you said in the article too, you said he should his lucky stars that Sean Spence and Terrence Garvin both left the Steelers and left some special teams vacancies for him, or else he may have been gone for sure. And that kind of goes just towards the defense overall. We had to pick an X factor. And we talked about who the breakout star of the defense would be for the year. I think we both hit these. It's kind of funny because I had your underachiever, and I said Bud Dupree is every bit the player we wanted Jarvis Jones to be. I said he flashed in his rookie year with 4 sacks and 17 totals. I said he'll be entrenched. He'll be better. They're committed to having him play. He's going to bust onto the scene. And then, of course, he went on injured reserve, but he still busted on the scene with leading the AFC in sacks from the time he came in December as basically a full-time player. He was a force to be reckoned with. He finished with 4.5 sacks, so he actually ended up marginally better than his rookie year with only 4 starts under his belt. He appeared in 7 games. I think 1 or 2 of those when he got rolling, like the Cleveland game, he only had like 3 or 4 snaps that he played on the defensive side of the ball. So they had to ease him back into things, and it's just, the guy is just freakishly good, and I think he will be an X factor for time to come. You went with somebody different, and then I'm going to mention somebody else at the tail end of this that neither one of us picked, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I went with Stephon Tuitt, and I think he played well, but I'm kind of disappointed to say I don't think he was really the breakout star I thought he'd be. Like, even just looking at his stats, like in 2015 he had 6.5 sacks, he had 39 tackles, and this year he had 4 sacks, 28 tackles. And it's kind of just disappointing. I know it kind of hurt him that Cam Hayward went down, because once Cam Hayward went down, that made people focus a lot on Tuitt, because he's definitely more of a threat than Davon Hargrave or Ricardo Matthews. But Stephon Tuitt really didn't turn into that like monster on the line of scrimmage that I was hoping he'd turn into. And maybe with Cam Hayward back next year and just another year in the system and improving, he could be that breakout star. And I do think he played well. He's really valuable to this team and to this future of the roster, but he wasn't the breakout star I was hoping he'd be this year.
Yeah, I still think he took strides, and it is tough because you lost the defensive captain, the other bookend on the other side. At the same time, it's just odd that the Steelers' defense actually got better against the run when Cam Hayward left. I don't know, maybe if an injury or something was nagging him at that time, or they just maybe didn't have a feel yet. You had a lot of young guys and a lot of moving parts, but that's kind of like my point of all these moving parts was one name we didn't name at all in this entire article is Ryan Shazier. And I'd have to say that he could almost fit into all of these categories. You could say he'd been on the hot seat because he's a first-round draft pick and he hadn't played like a full year and we hadn't seen his full potential. And you could say that people were expecting him to overachieve and be this Pro Bowl player that he actually became. So maybe he did overachieve. Some people may be thinking he would underachieve. The X factor, all those games, 3-4 games straight with an interception, and he's everything but the rookie, the biggest addition or whatever that we had to kick off this segment. Incredible that it just kind of flew under the radar for us. I don't know if we're just expecting greatness or just, it's kind of weird that we didn't mention Shazier at all.
Yeah, he really comes to mind for me because I think I wasn't really expecting him to underachieve or overachieve because I was expecting kind of good things from him. I didn't really think he was on the hot seat because his roster spot was pretty locked in. I didn't think he was going anywhere. But yeah, definitely breakout player. He could have been a factor. I just thought Tuitt was more likely to do that. But I am definitely happy with his season. He did miss some games this season, but he showed he can play the majority of a season. And when he was healthy, he played so well. I mean, he had a streak where he had 3 interceptions in a row between games, and there are multiple goal line situations where you just see him flying through, grab a running back's ankles and bring him down. Like, those are the kind of plays that like only a guy with his athletic ability could do. Players like Timmons and Vince Williams, who are both great players, they just don't have that natural ability that just lets them do those plays where he can just move from one side of the field to the other or go from the line of scrimmage to coverage like it's nothing. So, yeah, I think Shazier could have won some categories easily because he had a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? There's so many. It's going to be interesting to see what this defense is going to look like this year. I think several of the names that we mentioned we're not going to have to really worry about, like Shamarko Thomas or maybe not even Jarvis Jones heading forward. I think a lot of these guys are now set in stone. We had 3 good rookies. I think Tuitt's a good bookend there. We mentioned Shazier. Big news coming out recently is that James Harrison's agent is talking with the Steelers. He's interested in returning, and the Steelers are interested in having him back. Can you imagine this guy at 39 years of age just still getting it done? I mean, this is just wow. You know what? I'm watching hockey, and I'm thinking to myself how Jaromir Jagr is still around, and it's just crazy because you got like Mario Lemieux, Super Mario, and he's just, he's almost like the equivalent of like John Elway with the Broncos when it comes to hockey. He's this like legendary player that's moved into this like front office type thing, and then you got the guy that played with him still like skating around out there on the ice, he playing into like his 40s and whatnot. It blows my mind. I think one of the things I saw in football too was like George Blanda played into his 50s. If I got it right, it's like one of the first exhibits you see or used to see when you walked into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it makes me think of James Harrison, like how many more years has this guy got left in him? It's just incredible. And just his routine, watching him work out, knowing that he like invested time and money into a hyperbaric chamber. This stuff is just, it's like a fairy tale. It's like a superhero thing. If there's anyone with, I don't know, there's anybody with more work ethic than what he has. But as much as I hate to say it, there's still guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees that are out there playing into their late 30s. And the reason I'm mentioning all of these things is we're going to be talking about quarterbacks some more in the upcoming podcast. I've been talking about them in all the other shows. People are writing off Ben Roethlisberger. He's not even 35 yet. And it's just driving me crazy because, you know what? He could definitely take some tips from James Harrison. I don't think work ethic is outside the realm of possibility of any of these guys. Harrison might still have a couple more years left as long as he wants to do it. It's got to be a grind doing it day in and day out. And it's certainly something that I could admire and appreciate coming from a fan. So that means, Eric, I know you came from the gym a little bit ago. I get my workouts in a little earlier in the day. You get them in later at night. When you decide that I do
a little both, but I am sitting in my stank right now, so I probably will shower whenever I go.
That's just wonderful. I am so glad that we're on a Skype type session here and doing this through like a phone conversation basically, and you're not sitting next to me because I'd probably be pushing you down to the other side of the room so I don't have to smell you. So, but my whole point in this was you go to if you see James Harrison and you have enough guts to go up and ask him for a selfie, maybe you should just ask him for some workout tips.
I don't want to hear workout tips. He'll say wear sweats, just chain weights to your body, and it's nothing I can handle. I'd die if I tried to do what he did.
It's absolutely crazy. If you've never seen it, folks, I mean, he's got a Twitter, but his Twitter is kind of like disjointed and it just kind of repeats the things on Instagram. You need to go on his Instagram and find him because it's some of the craziest workouts you'll see. Antonio Brown has some crazy ones too, but it's more like plyometrics and like core exercises. And he's got like the balance ball and the bands and stuff. If you want to see like, Arnold Schwarzenegger style pumping iron, hitting clanging and banging and chains and just Olympic barbells and dumbbells. That's James Harrison. That's what you got to see. And let me tell you, it's just, wow. I can't believe it. There's no speculation here, though. Looks like both parties want him back. I'll be happy to have him back. And I most certainly will not label him as an underachiever next year. Eric, always good having you on, buddy. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk about our past predictions and just ramble on about jerseys and smelling and just whatever we end up talking about.
Yeah, the jersey thing. I mean, come on, man. You had to bring up the Step Brothers quote with the Randy Jackson signature on the samurai sword. I mean, what else am I supposed to say to that?
Obviously, yeah.
I'm certainly not going to tell you have a voice like an angel. So,
like a mix of Fergie and Jesus, you mean?
Yeah, definitely. That's probably a good segue to tell all of our listeners here to join us next time. I hope you get a big smile on your face too. Why don't you go on Twitter? You know, I'm going to have a Twitter poll with your favorite Step Brothers quotes, maybe. If, it's almost dating you. You know that movie's almost 10 years old. I looked it up. It came out in 2008. So
yeah, I remember watching that movie. My parents originally didn't allow me to see it because how old was I when that
9.
came out? Probably what? I was probably middle school at that point. So I remember watching. I remember I was watching that during the bathroom scene. You probably know the scene I'm talking about. the scene with his wife and she comes into the men's restroom. That's when my parents walked in, of course. so I got in trouble for watching that movie.
Mm-hmm. I could see it. I could see it. Some
You can hear the passion in my voice, too, talking about that.
I was going to say, man, what were you, like 4 years old? You should have been watching Barney or something. See, the age thing works both ways, pal. So, but anyways, always good to have you on. And until next time, folks, be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.